So obviously when you have a quarterback, you think about what's their salary. I mean, if Russell Wilson was a 7th-round pick, everything in Denver would feel completely different than his 5-year contract kicking in next year, right? Yeah. So if you consider contract, age, mobility, accuracy, talent, and I said today, Brock Purdy or Dak Prescott, it's not even close. I would take Brock Purdy. It's not even close. Dak now is not mobile. He's had too many lower extremity injuries. Dak's a pocket thrower, but he was never a great pocket passer. Like Russell Wilson, although Russell throws a prettier ball, Russell needs mobility to be Russell Wilson. A big part of Dak was that he could move. He no longer moves. So I get a below average pocket thrower who's super expensive. Brock Purdy makes way too many good throws to be a system guy. Dude hitting things down the middle tonight. And it sounds crazy, but you have to consider what you pay players. Once you pay guys, Burrow, Mahomes, Herbert, Allen, Lamar, well, those are special talents. Dak's got a special contract. He's an average pocket guy. Look at that lineup for the Niners. If for instance, John, if Brock made what Dak made, you couldn't have Fred Warner. You couldn't have been able to get Christian McCaffrey. You probably would have to get rid of one of your D linemen. It's not quite the same team, right? It's a good team. It's not quite this team.
Well, when the 49ers made the trade for Trey Lance, you know, the logic of trying to swing for the fences and get a star was in the right place, but a driving force was they wanted that rookie quarterback contract. And my big thing is the rookie quarterback contract isn't that relevant when the guy can't play. Part
Right.
of what made Dak such a good draft choice back in the day was he was a solid player, right?
Solid.
For Cousins back in the day. And then obviously we've seen in recent memory some of the star quarterbacks drafted. Brock Purdy, one, he's really good. I mean, you just watch, if you just watch NFL football, like that guy's really good.
John,
I mean, he's a good
Kyle
player.
Shanahan didn't make Blaine Gabbert or Trey Lance great players. Not all quarterbacks work with Kyle, right? Like
No, exactly.
Brock's really good.
Well, listen, and the other thing about Brock, you just hit on with Dak Prescott. There were a couple plays tonight. It's like Dak forgot that Dre Greenlaw and Fred Warner are the best linebacking duo in the league. Their play speed is elite for their position. And he rolled out a couple times. It's like, Dak, what are you doing? Get rid of the ball. If you're not going to be the athlete that you once were after the ankle injury, you can't scramble away from these guys. Damn. And then Purdy, the underrated part about his game, because I remember, I'd be lying if I said I watched that much Iowa State football. But the one thing that was immediate when he started playing, and the biggest difference between him and Jimmy, and they obviously won a ton of games with Jimmy, was Jimmy's lack of mobility after the ACL injury and his just ability to play make outside of the pocket. When you watch Purdy scramble, you're confident that something good is going to happen. How about the touch that he has on the move? When you're playing with this much talent, everyone's like, well, he's playing with a lot of talent. Well, you got to get him the ball. How many players have we seen play with other good players? Larry Fitzgerald can tell you played with a million quarterbacks, couldn't get him the rock over the years. This guy, you just watch him. Obviously, he's a little smaller, but listen, I mean, this fucking kid can play. I mean, bottom line.
Yeah, I mean, and again, it's Mark Brunell was a late pick. Brady, Kurt Warner, Romo. It's not shocking. We've seen guys undrafted, and I think there's a ceiling, but it's not a Mac Jones ceiling. He moves really well, and they don't ask him to throw a ton of deep balls. I mean, they just don't. It's funny. Like the Dak's rookie year in the first couple of years, he got an MVP vote or two his first year in the league. And so much of that was you weren't paying Dak anything. So they had the O-line, they had Zeke. It was an all-star team. Even their defense, I went and looked it up the other day, was top 5 in the league. Dallas right now, because once you pay that quarterback, Kansas City's roster is not great. Cincinnati, there's holes in that thing. Everybody's roster has a hole except San Francisco.
For sure. What I mean? Well, I think also when you take a quarterback high, you like a specific guy and you get aggressive. From Josh Allen to Mahomes to when the Texans drafted Deshaun Watson to Baker Mayfield, like you like that guy. To me, when you get a guy in the 3rd, 4th, and beyond, there's an element of luck, right, at quarterback, because teams are passing on the guy. It's easy to look back. God, look how good Purdy is. But at the time, I mean, he was one spot away from being an undrafted free agent. But you cannot value, and I think it's pretty clear, guys like him. You and I have talked about it. When you go to Alabama or Georgia, you have such an advantage on a weekly basis, right? You really do. Hell, we'll probably talk about Caleb a little bit later. I think he's benefiting a lot, or at least scouts are going to benefit watching him play. It's not as easy this year. Like, he has to make shit happen. His team's has a huge advantage. Well, Purdy, his entire career, we're going into games either as underdogs or having less talent than their opponents. So you have to learn how to play. So now you watch him. Well, he clearly knows how to play, and now he has the talent around him, and it's bombs away. I mean, they feel, clearly like one of the better teams we've seen in terms of the way they've started and just how the level in which they're playing in recent memory in the NFL.
Oh, I think, honestly, again, if you had even a good quarterback, Kirk Cousins, you could not have the same roster. You would not get both of those linebackers. You wouldn't. You would not have been able to acquire Christian McCaffrey. Well, if you take Christian McCaffrey and Fred Warner off this team, it's not the same team. That's the best linebacker in the game and the best running back right now. And what they can use, it's the other thing is when, we've all had a bunch of bosses in our life, but like when you're in sports, basketball and hockey are really so fast. But in football, you huddle. Football plays are choreographed. So you can sit on that bench as a football player, right? Baseball is very individual. If a guy's hot on the mound, there's not a lot you can do.
Yeah.
Again, basketball's moving 1,000 miles an hour. In football, when the other coach is better than your coach. Like, Dallas players are watching this Rubik's Cube of an offense. They're going, shit, we're getting work tonight, right? Like, a player would know that.
Well, think about this. A couple of years ago, they led the league in penalties. When the 49ers beat them 2 years ago at Dallas, they had a ton of penalties. There was an undisciplined nature watching them play tonight. There were a couple late hits out of bounds. And I understand, I always struggle, like in a physical matchup like this, you want guys to kind of be on edge. But there's also the 15 yards when you thought the game was going to be, in somewhat doubt early, it was going to be a tight game, really, really matter. And you just watch Dallas, they're not buttoned up. And I think you always talk about this with defensive coaches. They just don't understand the quarterback. They don't value certain things on offense. One thing, having had a front row seat for Kyle, that really makes him special is how much he values defense. Think about it. They drafted Nick Bosa number 2. They paid him a lot. This year, they signed Hargrave as a free agent immediately the moment free agency opened. Last year, they signed Charvarius Ward at corner. They've paid multiple linebackers. I think his favorite player on the defense is Talanoa Hufanga from USC. He loves that guy. He really, really cares about that side of the ball while being, the best play caller in the league.
Yeah, it's funny, too. There's an alpha with San Francisco. I was thinking about this tonight. The old Cowboy teams, the Aikman, Jimmy Johnson, even the coach had a personality. They were big and really good in big games. That Cowboy team had personality. They had alpha. It was Irvin. It was Jimmy. It was Aikman. Some of it unspoken. Some of it very spoken, Michael Irvin. This Cowboy team to me is kind of dull. Mike McCarthy's a little dull. There's not a lot of alpha. If I took the last 10 big games they played in, they probably won 3 of them.
I know.
I just feel like what the great Cowboy teams in my memory were better in big games. I feel this Cowboy team, we always kind of roll our eyes at Kirk Cousins because he shrinks. This Cowboy team shrinks. They shrink against the Eagles. They shrink against the Niners. We have to be honest about this, is that whereas the Buffalo Bills can be inconsistent. They're a real avalanche team. But when they're in the big games against Miami, they show. Now, they'll go to London and dog it, or they'll play a team like twice a year, and you're like, what is happening to Buffalo? But in the moment, the biggest games, the Bills bring their best fight. I think Dallas, we have to acknowledge this. They shrink in big games a lot.
Well, I think, I was thinking about this watching the Patriots today. We talk a lot about culture, in football, and usually the coach gets all the credit for setting the culture. It's really the players. And you got rid of Tom Brady and it kind of unraveled. But look, you talk to Edelman, he comes through Fox. Edelman, Gronk, McCourty, all those guys are gone. So when you look at the 49ers, they are full on both sides of the ball. They're all pro level players, are high character, grinder, tough guys. right? You think about Buffalo. Who are their high-level guys? Josh Allen, Poyer, Milano, right? They're just high-level guys. So the Chiefs are a great example, like this modern-day Brady Belichick guy. Super high-level, very serious, all about football. You watch Dallas. Listen, I appreciate Jerry taking some big swings in the draft, but you get some of these character guys, and then you laugh about it in your 7 million interviews every other week. Like, it's like that does unravel from the inside. And listen, Dak's clearly a good guy, high-level guy, but is he good enough to kind of be the tone setter for the locker room? Clearly not.
No, I think Mike is probably the tone setter for the locker room. Yeah, and I think we kind of to circle back to Dak is that I'm not blaming Dak for it, but when Jerry talks about these long-term extensions, it's like, Jerry, long-term extensions, that's what you did for Brady or Patrick Mahomes. They keep reworking the deal. Lamar, Josh Allen. Dak is not a long-term extension guy. He is no longer a mobile quarterback. He is. Greg Cosell said this on my show about a month ago, and it really, I thought, was one of the eye-opening bites. He comes on every Thursday, and he said the tape doesn't lie. Dak can't move. Well, we never thought. What if Russell Wilson couldn't move? I mean, seriously, what if? I mean, you start looking around. I love Josh Allen, but the part where he moves is what makes him big guy with a cannon to, oh, holy hell, in the red zone. You can't stop him. Like, Dak is an average pocket guy who's now expensive and doesn't move.
Well, here's the problem for the Cowboys. Dak always hung his hat on, like, I'm the best of the second tier guys, right? Yeah. I'm not the superstar, but I'm the best. I watched the Chiefs Minnesota game. Cousins a better player. Tonight, Purdy's a better player. So if you're no longer that, and the way these contracts work, right or wrong, it is what it is. Dak's making $40 million a year. So the contract extension, listen, it's just football inflation. He's going to want $45 million a year. Like you said, right. Sorry, can't pay it. The problem is, what the hell do you do? Right? Because they're still going to be a 10-11 win team. So do you just hope you can draft a guy? Do you let him walk? Trey Lance isn't even, he's not even in the same universe as Dak. Well, Cooper Rush, they're kind of in a weird spot.
So, and here's what the Dak defenders say. Well, he's winning a lot of games. Well, time out. Aren't you analytic guys the one that always tell me that winning is not a quarterback stat? Right? You can't have it both ways. You can't lecture me on winning's not a quarterback stat. Because if you look at Dak's wins, it's a lot of wins over Washington, over the Giants, over crappy NFC teams. But again, let's go back to the big games. They're not a very good big game team. So you can't have it both ways. You can't tell me Dak's great and he wins a lot of games, and then simultaneously, all the smart people on the internet is winning's not a quarterback stat. So, I do think that Dak's intangibles are very, very strong. Leadership, smart, pre-snap, all that stuff.
Works hard, all that.
Yeah, I like all that stuff. But just throwing darts from the pocket or making plays with your feet, it's not there.
Well, at any moment, Josh Allen's, the Herberts, the Mahomes can do something that like only Elway and Favre's could do, right?
Yeah.
Dak can't do that. So to be the best version of that tier 2 group, you can't be turning it over, right? There was that moment on Monday Night Football when Daniel Jones throws the pick and Dable, you're not allowed to do, we're not good enough with you doing that.
Yeah.
Dak had the moment tonight, threw the ball into center field to absolutely no man's land, a pick that the guy just had to, play it like Willie Mays. And even McCarthy was looking at him a little side-eye coming off the field. That can't happen with you. And all we talked about all offseason was the turnovers, cut them. You watch them tonight against a team that they are going to have to beat in the second or the third round if they want to go anywhere. And he's throwing the ball to the other team easily. The third pick hit the guy in the hands. Now, maybe his confidence is unraveled, but he just wasn't good enough early beside really the one drive.